music that first made me dance. It caressed my brain and nurtured my soul. It made me grow. It made me learn. It was the music that helped me first count to 10. I took in 26 letters and continued to sing. It was music that got me to my school. It made me kiss that first girl. It was the music that first made me angry, that made me cry, that helped me through my teens. It was the music that brought us together. It made that beer taste so much better, and that weed lasted just a little bit longer. It was the music that made me understand my parents. My mother sang, and my father borrowed your guitar. It was the music that brought us here today. It made that film turn into heaven. It increased your dialogue, and it stopped the pictures from moving. It was the music that helped me sleep and dream. It's the music that will make the last few seconds seem all right. Yeah, I've been to CBGB. How could a New Jersey kid who fell in love with Elvis Costello at the age of 15 not hit the Big Apple and visit one of the most legendary music venues on the planet? Best thing, I saw my brother Jeff play on that stage. Fuck yeah, I did. Same stage that David Byrne, the Ramones, Television, the Replacements, Dinosaur Jr., Blondie, Iggy Pop, and just about every other band I've grown to adore throughout my life played on. And that's the thing about CBGB. You toured, you played there. Over 50,000 bands rocked that stage. Some big, but mostly just bands that never made it. And that's the true beauty about Hilly Crystal's establishment. It was there for you if you had a voice. People gathered and drank and listened, and maybe just for a few moments, what you were saying mattered. This is a gift that even the greatest fake god couldn't give you. CBGB mattered. It stood tall amongst the steel towers in a city where anything could be easily lost. It went in the opposite direction. Even its name, Country Bluegrass Blues, went polar opposite. It fought for your art, your voice, your talent, and it didn't ask for much in return. I think the only thing it might have asked of anyone is to not make a terrible movie about the rise of one of the most important clubs in music history. CBGB, the 2013 film about Hilly Crystal and company starting out and moving up, is, and I hate to quote Quentin Tarantino, a wax museum with a pulse. Maybe not even a pulse. I mean, this film jumps from being about an unsuccessful bar owner who happens to help change the music scene in the 70s, to a film about the Dead Boys, to a film about a father and daughter, to a film about the Ramones, to a film about two dudes starting punk magazine. It's just horrible vision. I'm sure my friends here will tell you that what's really deserved is a documentary chronicling the rise and fall of this club, not a shitty film that wastes talent and ideas. It really annoys me that bands like Television are showcased in this film because what's put on screen is uninspiring. Television is an amazing band, and if you knew anything about Tom Verlaine and Richard Hell, something like this should light a fire in you to explore them. But everything is so easily forgettable in this film. Skip this shit and just YouTube CBGB and watch some videotape recordings of some legendary acts, or listen to an audio recording of a show, because this film will not do anything for you. And that's it, guys. I got to tell you, I love punk rock. Right off the bat, you guys know I love punk rock music. Some of my favorite bands circle around the genre, if not are just right there in the middle of the genre. I couldn't really get behind this movie. It just so many things annoyed me about this film. So many
Hey,
things.
just what you were just saying, Tom. There actually is a really cool documentary. It's not exactly about CBGBs, the rise and fall of CBGBs. It actually predates CBGBs. I was watching it today.
Okay.
You probably really dig it, man. It starts actually, kind of, it's sort of notes Andy Warhol as the kind of guy who set all this stuff in motion with Velvet Underground and then
Of
New York
course.
Dolls
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So Mercer Art Center, whatever the hell it was, it's called Velvet Underground, the New York Dolls, CBGBs, and the New York Punk Revolution.
Very cool.
I watched about 3 of the 5 segments that are up there. Really cool, man. I actually watched right up until they got up to CBGBs actually. So
Oh, very
nice.
nice. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's not totally about CBGB though.
not no, it's about the New York punk revolution, basically, everything that led up into that, but it includes a lot of the
Yeah.
CBGB stuff,
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. There has to be so much raw material out there that you could easily put together a documentary. Now, I'm not sure if there is one or isn't one. I don't know. I don't know if somebody's working on one. Who knows? You could probably.
There's a lot of material up there though too. I saw like a bunch of interviews with Hilly Crystal when they were closing the place
That's
down a
what I'm
few years
saying,
ago.
man. There's
There's a
just so
lot of
much. It's
there's
all
a lot
well
of material
documented.
about that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah,
so
it's all
much
about that.
documentation. I mean, from the bands to so many television interviews to, I mean, you could just talk to, I mean, you could just talk to the best of the best, whoever's still alive in that 70s punk rock world, and you could
Yeah.
just make an incredible film, I'm sure, because this.
It's up there, dude. Yeah, check it out, man. Yeah, it's exactly what you're
Yeah,
describing, man.
because this
Yeah,
this
definitely
movie
check it
doesn't
out.
do anything. It's just so bizarre and
So you kind of said something interesting. Wax Museum with a
well,
pulse, like
it's
that. Well,
it's a line.
that's a
It's a line
Tarantino.
from Pulp Fiction. When
Oh, is it?
yeah,
Okay.
when they're at the restaurant that what is it
Yeah,
Jack
yeah.
Rabbit Slims, well, where
There
they
you go.
have the Hollywood starlets and the 50s rock stars and all that, and they're your waiters and hostesses and whatnot, bartenders.
Right. So by that you meant like it's just like a dead thing that they're trying to, and that is that what you're taking offense to? Like that
It's just so bad to watch it's like you watch a movie like Control, let's just say, and you get these 4 actors to reform this group and make that musical magic. I mean, they're not like using the original studio recordings. They're actually playing this music and
yeah.
it just sounds and feels so much better like you're there. And this shit is just like they're just throwing, an MP3, and
I
and they're
gotcha.
like that scene at the end with Sting is just so ridiculous looking. Like they got this
Yeah,
kid, he's like 12 years old on stage singing Roxanne. It just doesn't even. It just looks silly.
I
No,
gotcha.
and the movie itself is just it's all over the place. It
Oh,
doesn't.
it's terrible. There's no vision to that movie
No,
whatsoever.
it's
It's
from
such,
one thing, one topic to, and then all of a sudden, in the middle of this movie, I'm like watching a biopic about the Dead Boys, like out of
well, I think one of the Dead Boys had something to do with this film. Because and everything you said was so great, leading up to the fact that this movie's a turd.
Mhm.
But you got to think that there's been other movies that have been on the table for CBGB,
It
and
has to be.
the fact that this one gets made by really a hack director who is now a bona fide actual criminal.
Wow.
That
What is it? How's that?
he's the guy that did the was doing the Allman film that killed the person with the train.
Oh wow.
Oh,
The Greg Allman biopic.
I didn't hear about that. Enlighten me.
So this
Enlighten me.
director, who has a reputation going back to this film CBGB of really just being a little bitch and like not getting permits, doing things completely in unsafe ways, and kind of screwing people over in the process in the different cities he films in, just kind of leaving a trail of waste behind him. So he was recently last year working on a Greg Allman biopic, and they were filming this dream sequence on a bed on some train tracks on a railroad trestle with Will. Oh God, what the heck? I'm blanking on. William Hurt was in this scene. And no permit, not doing it legally, no security, no nothing. And of course, a train comes along, and they all have to bail. And I think a production assistant ended up getting killed. And so the payoff to that is the dude is actually going to be spending some time in jail and is banned from making movies for 10 years.
Wow, that's like
punk,
John
actually.
Landis went through that kind of experience where he had children working late at night and they shouldn't have been working, and there was a horrible accident. This is how Vic Morrow died, like in a helicopter scene. This happened for the Twilight Zone, the movie.
That's
and
right.
Vic Morrow died. I think the kids died, I believe, and he was put on trial for murder. You
Yes.
know, and I think he beat it though.
He got a pass.
Yeah.
He got a pass. But no, this guy kind of had a really bad.
But this guy seems like a dick, so they didn't give him a pass.
No, this dick didn't get a pass.
Yeah, oh my God. But the movie is like, Adam, you said it too. There's just no vision to this movie, and it sucks because this is a legendary story with legendary characters, and even more annoying, and this is what really frustrated me, because Alan Rickman is really, really into this role. In my opinion, and he's a really good actor. I mean, one hell of an actor, and you get, and you're just giving him nothing to really work with, and I think that's a damn shame, man. Again, the movie's just fucking all over the place. Billy, what's your feeling?
Skip this shit. I love it. I love it, Tom. Yeah, it is a wax museum, man. It plays it plays a little bit like one of those Broadway musicals they do now, where it's like the greatest hits of Billy Joel with a minor plot, and it's like of all the plots, it reminded me of those old 1950s musicals where it was like, grandma's going to lose the old family property, so a bunch of theater actors go up and stage a show in the old barn. It just has this cheeseball. Like everyone at the end sort of stands around and applauds this guy, and it's like, he sounds like an interesting character worthy of a good movie.
Obviously, yes.
Yeah.
It's worthy of a great story.
I got another one to add to that list. We should put up links to some of the stuff on the page. Online you can view this hour and a half long documentary called New York '77: The Coolest Year in Hell. And it's not about CBGB, but it passes through that. And it's just, it just shows you the situation in the 70s and where all this stuff came from. And, just like, half of the Lower East Side was abandoned, and there were just trash cans on fire. Everyone was burning their trash in the street because the dump trucks weren't coming around to pick it up. And, people were going from, Studio 54 one night down to CBGB the next. I mean, there's a lot more like crossover in the whole music and culture scene there,
I hear you. I feel like Spike Lee did a better, like in
Summer of Sam.
Basically, and CBGB's only in that movie like toward the end. Like the band wants to, they play there, but I feel like he did a better job at least describing the culture of New York City at the time. Which is important, because all these bands, they're all different. And that's the thing about punk rock, is that like everybody thinks that punk rock has to sound like a particular way, and it doesn't. I mean, to me, it's not about how fast you can play or how a band sounds. It's all about the attitude. It's all about what you're saying. It's all about being counterculture, really. I mean, most people wouldn't think that the Talking Heads are a punk rock band. In my opinion, they are. Like Elvis Costello is punk rock. The Pretenders are punk rock, in my opinion.
Well, there's always, all that shit kind of gets labeled later. Like someone has to write articles for a magazine and call it something, right? So, they start throwing shit around, and then one of the names sticks. But it's really just, a certain place and time, a bunch of people start coming up with interesting ideas, and they want to do something different from what's come before, and then everyone else gives it a name.
Yeah, so. and that's the thing that's important to realize, Billy. Right? Is that's what what this place was about, was that just coming together and doing your thing and playing your music, and it didn't matter like what it represented.
Dude, why is this movie such a friggin' cartoon? Why is it like they're like fluffy, fuzzy animal characters walking through this movie? Like they're just cartoon versions of themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's just I don't get the thought process behind this. And if I had to hear someone talk about how they were a punk one more time, it was like watching the Pirates of the Caribbean movies where everyone says, I'm a pirate, I can't help it, I do this. It's like, I'm a punk, I do this crazy shit. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they weren't, no one, I promise you, was walking around telling everyone, I'm punk, that's what I do, this is my lifestyle,
No,
man.
that's what they do today for fashion, Billy.
That's like, yeah, and
That's I understand it.
that's like third generation copy shit, right? When you start saying that,
Right, right.
So yeah, that's goofy.
Tom, why are you into punk music? What is it about punk music that grabbed you when you were a kid?
You know what? To me, I think what sent me in the direction, and I wish I had more time to write my intro this weekend because I brought it up at the beginning, I think, of my intro here, but it all has to do with I was playing. I was 15 years old, and I was really good at baseball. So my uncle's friends, my uncle's about 10 years older than I am, had me playing in their over 18 men's softball league every Sunday. And so
What position did you play?
they would throw me in the outfield.
Okay.
Like my memory is of it is mostly playing like right field, right center. There's four outfielders in the men's softball league. So I remember because I could try. I could still run. I could track down balls. I could catch. I could throw. So they mostly put me in that area. So
Nice.
one of my uncle's good friends, who is a huge music fan, like this guy was huge. He was all over the place. I mean, he could listen to Bruce Springsteen 1 second, he could listen to the Sex Pistols 1 second. He just loved music, and he would give me a ride home because he lived down the street from where I lived at the time. So we're going back from the game, and I'm in his car, and he's playing the Elvis Costello "My Aim Is True" album, which is Elvis Costello's first album, and watching The Detectives comes on, and I'm just sitting there listening to it. Now, obviously, I listen to the radio a lot, and that's what you did, back in the '80s. You listen to the radio a lot when you're a kid, and I'm listening to this song, and it's very familiar to me. And to me, it sounded like Joe Jackson. See, I knew Joe Jackson because my mother used to listen to him all the time. So I asked the guy, I'm like, hey, Bruce, I'm like, dude, this is Joe Jackson, right? And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, who is it? And he's like, it's Elvis Costello. And I was so intrigued and so moved by what I was hearing on that ride home. I took a walk to the mall a couple of weeks later and bought that album. And from there, that led me to purchasing more Elvis, and then it got me into the Ramones. This is all like when I was 15, and then on my way to school on the bus, this kid, he always wore a leather jacket with a Misfits patch on it. And I could tell, well, this is the guy I think I need to start talking to. And so I befriended the guy, and this guy would feed, I just give him blank tapes, and he would give me Never Mind the Bollocks, Here Comes the Sex Pistols, 7 Seconds, so many different types of punk rock music, and I would just take it home and listen to it. And then a year later, I found the Replacements, and then it was just full on from there, where everything that I listened to was either like that alternative music or some type of punk rock music.
But now, what was it though about the music? What pulled you in?
Definitely the lyrics. I think I always was, because all the guys that I listen to, whether it's Elvis or Paul Westerberg or John Eastdale or Dramarama, these are my favorite bands. Or even Jay Mascis of Dinosaur Jr., who's a great guitarist, but I'm always been moved by him lyrically. It's definitely lyrics, and that's what I was getting at earlier. That it doesn't matter, how your music sounds. It's all about what's going on lyrically, and that's what it is, Adam. I mean, watching the Detectives and hearing Less Than Zero on My Aim Is True by Costello. I mean, these were like that. You could tell it was an angry man, and I was a pissed off teen. I had a
well, I was going to ask you, did you feel like a punk? Is that what you were connecting with it at that anarchy?
Absolutely, yes.
Fuck the man, fuck you all kind of attitude?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I needed it, man. Because I felt so neglected by my parents. I just felt neglected in life, and it drew me to that kind of music. And I definitely related to it. I never dressed the scene, though. I was never a big I never got wacky haircuts. I was, Joe kind of knew me when I was young. I don't think I ever dressed punkish in any type of way whatsoever, but I was definitely into the music, man. And I'm thankful that I I was turned on to those friggin' great bands when I was in my teens because I could have, I could be an NXS fan right now.
That'll help you.
Like I could be like, yeah, man, I still listen to the Fine Young Cannibals. You know what I'm saying, or whatever was like rock and roll poppy at the time, and then that stuff is fine, but there's a couple of NXS songs I dig, but I mean, it just opened my world tremendously, like to listen to all these great bands.
Nice.
Adam, you chose the subject here. What's your affiliation with punk?
Here's the thing, too. Before Adam answers that question, and Adam, I got to ask you: you're not a punk rock. You're not a big punk rock guy, right?
Not a big punk rock guy, no.
Okay, no. Yeah, big. So I'm curious.
Not like a hardcore punk fan.
Well, why do this?
Well, it doesn't mean I'm not punk. I mean, there's the ethos of the whole thing is exactly what I am. And I did find punk music in my teens, and I did go to punk a few punk clubs that were out here in LA with some friends. And there was a brief time where my hair was kind of like a sort of apricot pink sort of color that I went with for a little while just to kind of fuck it up. But
are you a big REM guy like Max?
No, I never got too far into REM, but yeah. It's just the it's the fuck 'em all, fuck the man anarchy sort of mentality that I think born with. I think it's in my DNA. I'm pretty sure. It's just my nature. So I definitely the whole punk movement resonates with me very much. And I did get into some of the music. I just wasn't really hardcore into it. Wasn't my first go-to music.
Yeah, I think with me, it's definitely my go-to music. I mean, if I'm sitting at a bar and I'm playing the jukebox music, I mean, most of the time the music revolves around definitely there's something punkish about it, without a doubt. I love it, man. It's my life.
And unfortunately, we don't have Jeff here, who your brother, who is the biggest punk I would imagine on the show since he plays in a punk band.
Yeah.
I mean, he played at CBGB. So.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff and I, Jeff and I were in a band for years, and we played, all over, this tri-state area.
What do you play, Tom?
I sang in the band.
Badass! I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was mostly due to the fact that Jeff was just a really talented guitarist. I mean, he picked up the guitar when he was like 13, 14, I think. I mean, maybe a little bit younger, actually. And he was just already like just able to play out and be creative by the time he was 14. And we started a band when he was 15 years old. I was 24, he was 15. And it was great. I mean, the first gig we played was at the Stone Pony in Asbury Park. I mean, it was... I mean, that's a legendary stage, too.
That's a great place.
Yeah, it's a really great play. And it was a real honor to play at a place like that. But, when we were playing like in the late 90s, there was still some remnants of some places in New Jersey, like the Stone Pony or the Brighton Bar in Long Branch still catered to original acts and stuff. And it wasn't any kind of a legendary or great scene, but there were still people out there that really cared to put you up on their stage.
New Brunswick had a pretty good scene.
Well, that's where right, and that's where Jeff with his band the Ergs, and like they've toured all over the place, the Ergs, and they still have a legion of fans. They were really kind of getting a little bit popular when they broke up because Jeff didn't want to play this fluffy punk, like Green Day-esque punk, punk. He just wasn't into it anymore. He wanted to do something else, and that's why he started this new band. And but absolutely, Joe, New Brunswick was the scene for him. Like that's where he cut his chops with that band.
I mean, I remember stumbling into a few bars. And
not just bars, but
seeing a scene going.
But the big thing in New Brunswick for a long time were these underground house parties. I've been like when I lived up in that area, I, especially as a teenager when I lived in Edison, and my friends were all in college, man, I used to get dragged to a lot of these just like fucking huge parties, and in the basement, like 3 local bands would play, free show, and you would just sit there and listen to these dudes, basically just form sounds, and it was awesome. It was really awesome.
Of course, man. Yeah, definitely.
But New Brunswick definitely, I assume it still has some kind of a scene. You know,
I'm
it
sure
always
most college
will.
towns do. Yeah,
Absolutely. I
most
hope
college
so.
towns do, but New Brunswick is just unique in how big it is and
Yeah.
how many kids are there
Mhm.
and how it is almost in like an urban area. You know, that's
Yeah.
just it's not as big as New York or whatever these larger cities, but
What's-
it's a pretty good scene on there.
There was a place downtown. What the hell was the name of the place downtown? Oh, it's gonna bother me now all night. I'm gonna have to look it up.
Not the state.
No, not the State Theater. No, there was a club down there.
I don't know.
Which I can't remember, but I don't know.
So he played at CBGB's. How were you there? So you were there?
I saw my brother play at CBGB. Yeah.
So what was that?
pretty
I've walked by the place. I've stuck my
Yeah,
head in there,
it was
but I never actually hung out.
really, really dirty.
Yeah, that's
And
what
they
I
were
hear.
very, very strict too, because at the time that I went, New York just changed the law where you couldn't smoke cigarettes inside of the bar.
Right.
Which was just really weird going to CBGB where they're like you had this strict rule, like as soon as you get in there. And here's the thing, once you were inside the place, you couldn't, if you went back out, you had to pay to get back in. So you like you didn't, I guess at that point the neighborhood was completely done with the nonsense, I guess. So they didn't want people at that point, they didn't want people hanging outside all night.
Well, now it's like a hipster type of place to be, the Bowery, where it's always been like the scourge of the city, historically. Now it's sort of a trendier type of place, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just. I mean, it was totally different. It was great though to go in there when I did, and definitely great to see Jeff play there, which was a real honor. And it was.
Did he fall off the stage or step in dog shit?
No. I didn't see any dog shit. The place was It was filthy though. It was really run down. It was like really bad. I remember just being like, holy shit, man. Like it was a wreck by then. But it was. You get the feel when you go in there.
I think it was always a wreck, according to this movie.
Yeah, because look at the guy that ran the place. He just had this like, all right, okay.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you guys that as much as I see every point that you guys are making, and I don't want to say that this is a great movie or a good movie even, but I didn't have fun watching. I had a few beers. It was the first movie I've watched in probably 2 weeks, and I sat down, and I don't know all that much about the punk scene or the history of it, so
yeah.
As cartoonish as it was, I kind of had a good time. Like I was like, holy shit! I was like, oh, these guys played here. These guys started here. I wasn't really looking at it, I guess, to my shame, as a movie or assessing it as a film, but just sort of just like, oh wow, holy shit, Patti Smith. I was like, oh yeah,
I can see.
That's awesome.
So it's like I have, by the time I was 2 or 3 beers into it, I was like, wow. I was like, hey, Lou Reed hung out there, and I get what you're doing and what you guys are saying, and that these guys, it's like, I totally get that. I even wrote that in my notes. It's like by the time somebody documents a quote unquote scene, it's already dead. You know what I mean? So what you're looking at is basically what you said, Tom, is just a historical artifact of it.
Yeah,
So it's like looking at a carcass of a thing that was once alive. But
that
for someone who
necessarily mean that you can't create a good film about this place.
The best thing you could do is just get everyone you possibly can to tell stories. Like get all those punk people, all those musicians drunk on camera telling stories about each other, and make a documentary out of that.
Yeah,
that would be
even for the people that are dead. There's a lot of archival material. Like I just really would want to see, because you can't. Like I feel like people make this huge mistake. I encounter it a lot in movies lately, like Monuments Men. Did anyone see that?
No, I mean I was interested.
The Clooney picture about the
I saw it.
Yeah. So it's like, I watched that and then afterwards I'm like, that makes me really want to read a book on this subject. Like I'm sure the real story is much more interesting than the schmaltzy saccharine version.
But you know what
produce,
though? You still run like that documentary that I was watching. It's just as much. Even those guys are older now, and they're all talking about their experience. The guy from television.
Yeah.
What's his name? Tom.
Tom Verlaine or Richard?
I think the Richard guy. Yeah,
Hell.
Richard. Yeah, he's that guy's in there. There's a whole bunch of guys in there talking
about. And it's
about
schmaltzy too, right?
It's not schmaltzy. It just feels like they're talking about a ghost. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like it's just the nature of it.
You know
And
what, though? I think
with,
also,
That's
I
true.
don't, whether the filmmaker or whomever may themselves been really into punk and trying to make a movie about something that meant something to them, it just is so flat and one dimensional. I keep thinking of the movie
I do see that.
Lords of Dogtown,
Hmm.
where there's a movie about a specific place and era and time and events. And sort of like that biopic, but man, it runs so deep. There's so many
Yeah,
layers.
I know.
It's so, you feel like you're there and you feel like you know these people. And this was like a slideshow of just
It's a
like, hey,
matter of
this band
filmmaking.
played here. Yeah,
Well, you always
You
get the
can
sense with
still make a
every
crappy documentary. I
yeah.
mean, maybe it's harder to make a good documentary. I don't really know, but you still have to have quality filmmaking. So yeah, you could still tell an interesting, dramatized version of that guy's story. But it does seem like it would be easier to tell a good story just through
A doc.
documentary.
Yeah, that's what I think would work. I don't. I'm not saying it's right, Billy. It's not impossible to do a drama, a film drama about this.
Or well, here's a good example of did we talk about Inside Llewyn Davis a little
Yeah.
bit on one show, right? We didn't do it formally, but like that's a great document. That's a great film because it's telling a story in a fictional. You see, and that's
Yeah.
why
It's
fiction
a
works
great
better.
film because
It's
the Coen brothers did it.
Well, the Coen brothers did it, but you know what? And they're
If the
great
Coen brothers
filmmakers, but
did this film, it would be great. Like,
well, no, yeah, but they did it because they're great filmmakers because they knew to make like Billy said, their directorial decisions to make the film about the guy, not Bob Dylan, about the guy who didn't succeed. You know what I
yes,
mean? And
yeah.
to fictional, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you get a more of a live sense of it actually happening. Where
That's
in
what
a film
that's
like
what the
this,
places like that, and I said that too. It's like there's 50,000 bands that played this stage, and yes, some of them went on to be legends, but most of them aren't.
right? And
Had the
then
place, they had it. They had a place in New York fucking City where they could go to and
yeah.
spill their fucking soul out to.
they should remake that movie from the point of view of the dog that craps all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
And
thing. I
Werner
mean,
Herzog can do
every scene in the movie, you feel like, oh, this happened once in 1977 on April 5th. Like it's like, every scene, you're very aware of
Oh,
its
absolutely.
historical significance, which undermines the thing itself as being like a good work of art. But
Yeah, you get
yeah.
you see get the sense that the director or the writer, maybe I think he did both, where you just sat down and talked with Hilly's daughter. He said, "Oh, we always argued about how his finances. All right, let's put a
Right,
scene in the film where they argue about
right,
Yeah.
next.
right.
That's about the level of depth that this movie has.
You do
Yeah,
feel like grandma's breaking out the photo album,
it's
and forcing
Yeah,
you to sit there and look at all the family snapshots.
it's like getting
But
it's like getting a story through the old ViewMaster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
but for all that, man,
I,
sometimes it's
I
fun to sit
officially
down in front
declare
of.
the day Viewmaster filmmaking was coined as a term. That is perfect, Tom.
Thanks.
But for all that, sometimes I do like watching the slideshow.
Yeah.
So it's not all
Well,
bad. So
you didn't know
depends
really
on your
anything about
perspective. That's all.
CBGB before this, right?
Yeah, not much,
Yeah.
except
So
for
if this is
like
your introduction to it, yeah, it's kind of like the first time you encounter it, you're like, Jesus Christ, everyone played there.
Right.
yeah, like I knew about it. Like my cousin used to go there all the time, man. He was a few years older than me, and he used to tell me he's going down there and all that stuff. But yeah, it's just like although some of those bands I like, I've come to them later, in life, and I've liked them later in life. So it's not. I don't know. It was just a fun ride for me, I guess.
The only thing that I could really, applaud is that they gave television, like they played a lot of television's music at the beginning, and they talked a little bit about the band Television. I think they're one of the most underappreciated quartets to ever get together. So if anybody out there who's listening or have seen, they've seen CBGB, it's totally worth just go listen to Marquee Moon. Television is really, it's even you guys, I'm telling you, Billy and Joe, even Adam, I don't know if you've ever dabbled in them at all. Listen to Marquee Moon. I'm telling you guys would dig it. Definitely.
I do have that album. I have listened to it.
So you appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
I mean, some of those bands took me a while to figure out because it was like they were so low key compared to like the sound is very different. I think when they came out in the '70s, everyone was like blown away by the sound because I mean, they must have played incredibly loud, and it probably sounded pretty dissonant and everything.
Mhm.
But by the time I was listening to music seriously in the '90s, they all already sounded a little bit quaint. But yeah, over the years I've gotten a lot more that and Velvet Underground and all those like low key bands from the late '60s and '70s out of the New York scene.
Guys, listen, we have so much more to talk about next week with punk rock. Let's save it for then. I want to thank Billy, Joe, Adam. Thanks a lot for doing CBGB with me this week. The Cutting Room Movie Podcast is brought to you by Christiana Productions and New Media Limited. The show is edited and co-produced by Joseph Schreck and produced by Thomas Detloff and more so lately, Joseph Christiana. We'd also like to thank our associate producer, Jeremy Garcia of Dartboard Cinema, and you can like us on Facebook at The Cutting Room Movie Podcast and follow us on Twitter at Cutting Room Podcast at TCRMP1, and you can follow me on Twitter, Thomas Detloff, at TCRM Podcast. You can also check out Joe's film work at ChristianaProductions.com. Check out Adam's new pilot, Starland PC, at StarlandPC.com. Max and Adam's Bowler Hat Productions and their Mimosa Podcast show at Max Cook and thecounselor.com. And check out Max Cook's blog at maxcookuncorked.com. Music from The Cutting Room is done by the Zillatones. Check them out at www.zillatones.com or search for the Zillatones at ReverbNation.com. We'll be back next week. We're talking punk rock movies. We're going to do SLC Punk, and you can hear our little...
And Suburbia.
Yeah, a little problem with us.
Hijinks and Suburbia.
Yeah, some behind the scenes hijinks. So all good. Penelope Spheris or Richard Linklater's Suburbia. We're really not quite sure yet. Tune in to find out. And we're also doing SLC Punk from 1998. Until then, we are over and we are out. Ciao.
Next time to satisfy more of your strange desires. The Cutting Room Movie Podcast. We do chicken right.
It was the music that helped me sleep and dream. It's the music that will make the last few seconds seem all right. Yeah, I've been to CBGB. How could a New Jersey kid who fell in love with Elvis Costello at the age of 15 not hit the Big Apple and visit one of the most legendary music venues on the planet? Best thing, I saw my brother Jeff play on that stage. Fuck yeah, I did. Same stage that David Byrne, the Ramones, Television, the Replacements, Dinosaur Jr., Blondie, Iggy Pop, and just about every other band I've grown to adore throughout my life played on. And that's the thing about CBGB. You toured, you played there. Over 50,000 bands rocked that stage. Some big, but mostly just bands that never made it. And that's the true beauty about Hilly Crystal's establishment. It was there for you if you had a voice. People gathered and drank and listened, and maybe just for a few film about the Ramones to a film about two dudes starting Punk magazine. It's just horrible vision. I'm sure my friends here will tell you that what's really deserved is a documentary chronicling the rise and fall of this club, not a shitty film that wastes talent and ideas. It really annoys me that bands like Television are showcased in this film because what's put on screen is uninspiring. Television is an amazing band, and if you knew anything about Tom Verlaine and Richard Hell, something like this should light a fire in you to explore them. But everything is so easily forgettable in this film. Skip this shit and just YouTube CBGB and watch some videotape recordings of some legendary acts or listen to an audio recording of a show, because this film will not do anything for you. And that's it, guys. I got to tell you, I love punk rock. Right off the bat, you guys know I love punk rock music. Some of my favorite bands circle around the genre, if not, are just right there in the middle of. It was the music that first made me dance. It caressed my brain and nurtured my soul. It made me grow. It made me learn. It was the music that helped me first count to 10. I took in 26 letters and continued to sing. It was music that got me to my school. It made me kiss that first girl. It was the music that first made me angry, that made me cry, that helped me through my teens. It was the music that brought us together. It made that beer taste so much better, and that weed lasted just a little bit longer. It was the music that made me understand my parents. My mother sang, and my father borrowed your guitar. It was the music that brought us here today. It made that film turn into heaven. It increased your dialogue, and it stopped the pictures from moving. Moments. What you were saying mattered. This is a gift that even the greatest fake God couldn't give you. CBGB mattered. It stood tall amongst the steel towers in a city where anything could be easily lost. It went in the opposite direction. Even its name, Country Bluegrass Blues, went polar opposite. It fought for your art, your voice, your talent, and it didn't ask for much in return. I think the only thing it might have asked of anyone is to not make a terrible movie about the rise of one of the most important clubs in music history. CBGB, the 2013 film about Hilly Crystal and company starting out and moving up, is, and I hate to quote Quentin Tarantino, a wax museum with a pulse. Maybe not even a pulse. I mean, this film jumps from being about an unsuccessful bar owner who happens to help change the music scene in the 70s, to a film about the Dead Boys, to a film about a father and daughter, to of the genre. I couldn't really get behind this movie. It just so many things annoyed me about this film. So many.
Hey, just what you were just saying, Tom. There actually is a really cool documentary. It's not exactly about CBGBs, the rise and fall of CBGBs. It actually predates CBGBs. I was watching it today.
Okay.
You probably really dig it, man. It starts actually. It's sort of notes Andy Warhol as the kind of guy who set all this stuff in motion with Velvet Underground and then New York Dolls and stuff like that. So Mercer Art Center, whatever the hell it was, it's called Velvet Underground, the New York Dolls, CBGBs, and the New York Punk Revolution.
Very cool.
I watched about 3 of the 5 segments that are up there. Really cool, man. I actually watched right up until they got up to CBGBs actually. So
very nice. But yeah, it's not totally about CBGB though.
No, it's about the New York punk revolution, basically, everything that led up into that, but it includes a lot of the CBGB stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. There has to be so much raw material out there that you could easily put together a documentary.